See ya.
Doing real
I
good.
like that purple shirt. Looks
Oh,
good
well,
on
thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, is that really purple or isn't that lavender?
Lavender.
Lavender.
Mauve. Looks like.
How are you?
mauve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any?
Yeah, it's one of those things where I'll go and buy shirts or go
Yeah,
shopping.
good, good. Just,
No.
you know.
Yeah.
Yes, no.
Thing.
And, you know, everything that I think looks good, I get the.
You get the
negative.
no.
Yeah, I get the no on it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
She's
Seems
my
like
fashion
things should be
consultant.
common now for me, and it just seems like things easier. Hi, Mayor. Alexis.
How are you? You say mayor and there's like 5 people that look at you.
Am I in trouble?
True. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6:03 and ask for a roll call, please.
Sand City,
Here.
County of Monterey, Seaside,
Here.
Marina Coast,
Here.
Delray Oaks,
Here.
Salinas,
Here.
Pacific Grove,
Here.
Castroville,
Here.
Veranda,
Here.
Monterey.
Here.
Have a quorum.
Okay, and then board member Rowe, did you have comments to make real quick regarding your virtual participation? I can get this together here.
I do, Your Honor. Thank you. I am participating in today's meeting remotely under recent amendments to the Brown Act due to a contagious illness that prevents me from participating in person. There is not anyone with me in the room. Let's have a good meeting. Thank you.
Well, we hope you feel better and appreciate you being with us here despite your illness. So wishing you a speedy recovery.
I appreciate that. And we're both feeling much better. Paxlovid is a miracle drug for sure. So
Very
we are
good.
having a surge, by the way. Here's right off the front page of No Kidding magazine. But so everybody, be careful.
Thank you for it. All right, with that, I don't know who. Mayor Carbone, you want to lead us in pledge?
I would be.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mayor. All right, and with that, we'll move to 4 additions to the agenda.
No additions.
All right, seeing none, we'll move on to item number 5, approval of agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Second. Moved and seconded to take it out to the public. Anybody in the public wish to speak on this item? Not seeing any takers. We'll bring it back to the board for a vote. Roll call, please.
Monterey,
Me, yes.
Veranda,
Sorry.
Yes.
Sue being first.
Castroville,
Yes.
Delray Oaks,
Yes.
Marina Coast,
Yes.
Pacific Grove,
Yes.
Salinas,
Yep.
Sand City,
Yes.
Seaside.
All right. Okay. And with that, we will move on to public comments. These are for items that are not on today's agenda. Does anybody in the public wish to speak for this item? If you're on Zoom, you can use the raise hand function. Not seeing any takers. All right. So with that, we'll go ahead and bring it back to the board. Move on to item number 7, consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent?
Motion to approve.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. We'll take it out to the public. Anybody in the public wish to speak on any of the consent agenda items? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board and ask for a roll call, please.
Monterey,
Yes.
Veranda,
Yes.
Castroville,
Yes.
County of Monterey,
Yes.
Delray Oaks,
Yes.
Marina Coast,
Yes.
Pacific Grove,
Yes.
Salinas,
Yes.
Sand City,
Yes.
Seaside.
All right, and we'll just note for the record that board member Church is present and with us. So thanks for being here today, sir. With that, we'll move on to committee reports. We have Recycled Water Committee. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? I'm sorry, the minutes?
Move to accept the report.
Second.
All right, we'll take it out to the public. Anybody in the public wish to speak on this item? All right, seeing none, bring it back to the board, and ask for roll call, please.
Monterey,
Yes.
Veranda,
Yes.
Castroville,
Yes.
County of Monterey,
Yes.
Delray Oaks.
Yes.
Marina Coast.
Yes.
Pacific Grove,
Yes.
Salinas.
Yes.
Sand City,
yes,
Seaside.
Aye. All right, motion passes. And with that, we will move on to item 9A, consider award of contract to Univar Solution USA for sodium hydroxide for the advanced water purification facility in the not to exceed amount of $97,715.93. And with that, pass it to Jose for staff presentation. Sorry, it's Tammy.
Good evening, Chairman Tyler and members of the board. My name is Jose Guzman, Operations Manager at Monterey One Water. Monterey One Water's advanced water purification facility uses chemicals within both the treatment and post-treatment processes. In September of 2024, the board approved a chemical contract for sodium hydroxide to supply and deliver chemicals for the treatment of 5 million gallons per day production water capacity. The contract was for a 1-year term, which expires in September of 2025. There was the option to extend this chemical contract. However, both parties could not come to an agreement on the terms of the extension. Therefore, staff developed bid documents with the notice inviting bids published in July of 2025. Companies were allowed to bid on the chemical for a contract term of 1 year with the option of 3 1-year extensions. On August 14th, 2025, M1W received 4 electronic bids via Procore. Staff reviewed 4 submittals and identified the lowest qualified bid, which was from Univar Solutions USA. And I do want to bring attention to the board that although the staff report says the not to exceed amount of $97,715.93, there was, as part of the bid documents, if the supplier could substantiate a tariff to include that cost. So I'm asking for $104,253.23, which is still a decrease compared to last year's contract. And that is to cover the potential cost of a tariff increase, which could occur at one instance in the first year of the contract and then the subsequent years. Sodium hydroxide was included in the fiscal year 25-26 budget for $158,400. Staff requests that the board approve a contract with Univar Solutions USA for sodium hydroxide for the advanced water purification facility in the not to exceed amount of $104,253.23. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jose. Any questions from the board? All right, I'm not seeing any, so we'll take it out to the public. Anybody in the public wish to speak on this item? All right, not seeing any public commenters, so we'll bring it back to the board for motion and deliberation.
I'll move approval.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Monterey,
Yes.
Veranda,
Yes.
Castroville,
Yes.
County of Monterey,
Aye.
Delray Oaks.
Yes.
Marina Coast.
Yes.
Pacific Grove,
Yes.
Salinas.
Yes.
Sand City,
yes,
Seaside.
Aye.
Okay, thank you for that. Motion passes. With that, we'll move on to item 9B. Bring it back to Jose. This is consider award of contracts to Brentag Pacific Incorporated for sulfuric acid and hydrogen peroxide chemicals for the advanced water purification facility in the not to exceed amount of $707,273.58.
Good evening, Chairman Tyler and members of the board. Jose Guzman again. Monterey One Water's advanced water purification facility uses chemicals in both the treatment and post-treatment processes. In September of 2024, the board approved 2 chemical contracts for sulfuric acid and hydrogen peroxide to supply and deliver chemicals required for the treatment of 5 million gallons per day of product water capacity. The contract was for a one-year term which expires in September of 2025. There was the option to extend this chemical contract. However, both parties could not come to an agreement on the terms of the extension. Therefore, staff developed bid documents with the notice inviting bids published in July of 2025. Companies were allowed to bid on the chemicals for a contract term of 1 year with the option of 3 one-year extensions. On August 14th, 2025, M1W received 4 electronic bids via Procore. Staff reviewed the 4 submittals and identified the lowest qualified bid for both chemicals was from Brentag Pacific, Inc. for a total not to exceed cost of $707,273.58. Sulfuric acid and hydrogen peroxide were included in the fiscal year 25-26 budget, totaling $708,400. Staff requests that the board approve 2 contracts with Brentag Pacific, Inc. for sulfuric acid and hydrogen peroxide for the advanced water purification facility in the not to exceed amount of $707,273.58. We happy to take any questions.
Jose, any questions from the board?
Yeah.
Please.
So, Jose, do you expect that there would be, well, I hate to back up to the last item, but we increase the amount from on the last item because of, in case of a tariff? So would you expect that in this case?
Not in
item?
this case. In the prior contract, there was because Univar, it's the reason we couldn't agree to terms is because they wanted to include tariff language in the contract. But after we consulted legal, that's a change to the contract. So we had to put it out back to bid, and it just so happens they were the lowest bidder again.
Okay.
So this supplier didn't.
Okay, so we're good.
And
Here.
it comes down to where things are being produced,
Correct.
right? So
Yeah.
the Univar, is it Canada?
I
Is
think
where
it
they
is-
produce, whereas this one is US?
That's where they source, yeah.
So
Okay,
it's,
okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Great, seeing none, we'll take it out to the public. Anybody in the public wish to speak on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board for motion and approval.
Move approval.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Monterey,
Yes.
Aranda,
Yes.
Castroville,
Yes.
County of Monterey,
Aye.
Delray Oaks, Marina Coast,
Yes.
Pacific Grove,
Yes,
Yes.
Salinas, Sand City,
Yes,
Seaside.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Jose, for that. With that, we'll move on to 10A, update on Pure Water Monterey expansion and Pure Water Monterey projects.
Good evening,
Pastor Dave.
Chair Williamson, board members. Just wanted to mention, our goal is not to slow down your board meeting with this presentation. As the slides come up, a quick overview of water production numbers. So we're at 19,400 acre feet since startup. Also, you probably heard from a staff member that through end of June, the 4th full year of operations achieved the 3,500 contract obligations, plus 164 acre feet for last water year was put into operational reserve. And operational reserve is now at 2,353 acre feet. So getting close to a year's worth of water. In that same water year, so again, July to June, Marina Coast Water District, they wheeled or they received water and delivered it to the golf courses. That was 433 acre feet. And this water year started real strong with over 300 acre feet in the month of July. So happy where that stands. So again, we've got 2 major construction projects going on for expansion. The AWPF project started in August of 2023. Injection well phase 4 started in October of 2023. Next slide, please. The AWPF project, that's a $17.7 million package, and it's officially at 92% complete. Next slide, please. Where that contractor is right now is they're going step by step through the different main process units. So you can see the ozone skids, the MF skids, and they have to test each one separately And then at the end, they run them all together in what we call a 7-day test. So next slide, please. So these are the four main process units we have, finishing with RO and UV. One thing that's really good to emphasize is that the permit is also moving along. That's the new permit we need from the Regional Water Quality Control Board. We've been assured that we're on the agenda for
October 9th.
October
in the
9th.
morning, no less.
Right. And it's just a coincidence. The ribbon cutting is
October 2nd.
October 2nd. And the regional board had put out the draft permit. That comment period ended August 22nd. And also happy to report no major comments, no public comments really per se. You may remember back in April when we did a meeting in here for the engineering report that fed into that permit. There were 0 public comments when they opened up the floor. So I think the public is happy that we're moving forward with the expansion. Next slide, please. Moving on to the second bid package. So again, this is our $25.3 million injection well phase 4. It's at 88% complete. One highlight on this project is you see where the blue line ties into the red line at the Black Horse Reservoir. So we actually finished that connection on June 10th. Took a little while to get the property easements figured out. But with that, we were then able to start circulating water in that loop. So it was a big deal. That happened about a month ago. And that's improved performance in some of the existing wells, the fact that they get water from both directions. So happy to report that. Next slide, please. This slide just shows that hot tap process. In the construction world, you can actually cut into a line, in this case a 24-inch line, while it's filled with water and pressurized. And that's what we did, so we didn't interrupt ongoing operations up there at the reservoir. Next slide, please. This is the finished product. So both DIW5 and DIW6 look just like this. You're looking at about $6 million worth of infrastructure, both above and below grade. Next slide. Where this contractor is, we're happy to report, and this is kind of the highlight of this evening, these guys have achieved substantial completion. You may remember that's the point where the owner could take beneficial use. So if we'd had the permit, had the source water at this moment, we could push all of the water we need to down this well. So last week, they finished the full functional testing. Everything works. We're still playing with some of the fine tuning, but we're granting them substantial completion last week, which plus or minus a week is exactly what their contract says they're supposed to do. So that's a big win for the program that they were able to achieve that. Next slide. So how does the schedule tie in? So you can see on the upper part of the schedule, the blue activities show that the AWPF contractor needs a little more time. We gave him some time. He needed a little more time. So right now he's scheduled to achieve substantial completion September 22nd. Okay, so that project is actually slipped behind the injection well phase 4 project. So they've achieved substantial completion. That's the green activity lines. If you read the staff report, we say that's probably okay with us as long as they can get the substantial completion by September 26th. If we get our permit on October 9th, both projects are where we need them to be before we get the permit. So that's hopefully the end of the good story so far. So with that, I'll open it up to questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Any questions from the board? So I do have a question. So we get the permit, we finish out the substantial completion for both sides of the project. What does it look like as far as our contractual obligations at that point?
Well, both projects will still have what we call a punch list, which are all the little things that our inspectors finally notice and document. That work and some change order work at injection well phase 4 will probably spill into October, November. And at which point, when they do reach final completion, then we release their 5% retainage. So we see that happening kind of in case of the two projects around Thanksgiving and probably around Christmas for those two projects. But by then, again, M1W will have full custody of the facilities and be able to use them as they see fit.
So just to add to what Dave said, he was focusing on the two construction agreements and where we're going with that. In terms of the water purchase agreement, the amended water purchase agreement, we are committed to start selling water in February. So we'll obviously do that much earlier. But it's actually a great time to do that, which was why we're pushing for September 22nd and October 9th, because generally speaking, the irrigation demands start dropping off. So there's more water available for the 7.6 million gallon per day treatment plant. So those are the three agreements that mainly have to do with what we're trying to accomplish here.
And then for us to recycle additional water prior to the start of our contract, how is that covered? Like who pays for that? And what bucket does that fall into? Is that part of the reserve, or is that help us starting to meet our contractual obligations just earlier?
Yes. So the February date was actually sort of it needs to start by then. If it starts earlier, CalAm and Water Management District still are part of the three-party agreement where they need to pay for the money provided.
And is that
Pay for the water provided, excuse me.
yeah. Is that prorated, if you will, for the year, or
It will be in terms of the obligations, we're looking at an overall 5750 for the year. So from the October date, hypothetically, if Tammy and Jose want to start October 10th, yeah, it would be prorated, if you will.
okay? And then last question, because the injection wells are completed sooner, I don't know what the bottleneck is in the process. So does that allow us to recycle more water sooner than okay, it's the opposite.
Yeah, there's plenty of capacity in the injection wells at this point in time, and certainly with the other two on board, or the two injection wells functioning, the true bottleneck in trying to get more water to them is the 5 MGD capacity of the existing treatment plant, as well as the source waters at this time of year when it's warm outside, irrigation demands are still high. So there's limited source waters that Jose and his crews can tap into. No
Okay.
pun intended.
And I unintentionally lied. So I have one more question. So when we started this whole project with the Pure Water Monterey base project, we had the 2 shallow wells. And what's the status of obviously we added the 2 additional wells prior to this new project, but what's the status of those? I'm seeing some facial expression.
Yeah, we were really hoping that you wouldn't bring that up. So those wells are not performing as anticipated. If you go back to prior to the project where test wells were put in place, we were anticipating, ballpark, getting about 500 gallons per minute into each of those shallow wells or Veda zone wells. You remember, those of you that were here, we had a number of issues with the construction of those. They were difficult. Crews got them in, they're working. I'll ask Jose or Dave for the specifics, but I think we're around 50 gallons a minute and 35 gallons a minute in the other one.
About 25 and 30.
Okay, I was a little optimistic there. So something we are considering is obviously having these facilities, even though we have the capital cost is paid for, there's a significant amount of O&M, operations and maintenance costs for these very low producing wells. So we will be coming back to you with the thought of potentially abandoning those 2 wells in place because they're just not, frankly, worth it. Yeah, absolutely. The whole shebang, which is unfortunate.
Yeah.
But we will, on the plus side, we do have all the deep injection wells, which are producing.
Well, and just for the public's awareness, we knew that they were struggling, which is why we added to the wells 3 and 4 prior to 5 and 6. Right. Did I get those numbers right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So, okay, that's it for me. Please.
So is it true that those wells go both ways?
Yes, they can.
So if we decide to abandon them, I would urge you to have a conversation with REM. I don't know whether there'll be any interest in using them as monitoring wells, but there might be.
Once again, we'd have to look at, and that's a possibility, we'd have to look at, as Jose said, just what our O&M expense as well as monitoring, the whole shebang on what it costs to keep those things versus just putting in a smaller monitoring well, if
Right,
that would be of
right.
use.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, with that, we'll take it out to the public. Anybody in the public wish to speak on this item? I can't see anybody. I'm not seeing any hands. So with that, we will bring it back to the board. Any last minute comments? All righty. Thank you, Dave. Your presentations are always insightful, and I'm glad to hear that things are moving along well. So with that, we will move on to our last major item for the open session, which is 10B, federal, state, and local advocacy updates.
So I'd just like to do a brief introduction for Rachel and Johanna, who I know you are aware of. As you know, periodically we'll do these updates, whether they're grant updates, the IS strategic plan, which Frank did last time. This is specific to our advocacy efforts, both on a federal, state, and local level. So a couple things have changed. Both Rachel and Johanna have new positions. So this is my first opportunity to tell the board that Johanna is actually going to be doing contract compliance and procurement, working with Lawrence. She'll still be doing the grant administration, so there'll be interaction between the two groups. And then Rachel is taking the role of, she's pretty much going to lead community and legislative affairs. So we've taken the grant administration portion out, which will follow Johanna, but everything else is under Rachel's purview. So congratulations to both of them.
Awesome. Yes, congrats indeed.
Thank you, Paul. We're both very excited for the opportunity to support the agency in these new capacities. So good evening, Chair Williamson and members of the board. We are going to get a presentation up momentarily. So over the last decade, Monterey One Water has adapted its outreach efforts to include an emphasis on legislative advocacy. Today, these efforts are managed by the executive officer, the community relations team, and lobbying firms in both Washington, D.C. and Sacramento. Maybe Chai will just use Dave's strategy. Thank you. All right, the strategies and tasks related to our legislative services tend to support our strategic objectives to, one, anticipate industry policy and position Monterey One Water for a competitive advantage, and also to engage and educate our community to enhance trust and transparency. However, our advocacy priorities relate to any policies, legislation, or funding that will help Monterey One Water advance all of our strategic objectives. Next slide, please. So we'll now look at an overview of our legislative platform for fiscal year 2025-2026, which serves as a roadmap to address current issues and events as they arrive in the federal, state, and local policy arenas. So at the federal level, staff work with DC lobbying firm Carpy & Clay. This contract includes key support to help us monitor the current political landscape and determine the best strategies to guide our federal legislative, regulatory, and administrative advocacy efforts. This year will be our first full fiscal year under the new administration. We're navigating new priorities and new faces and key roles, and we are getting creative in rebranding and packaging our efforts to ensure they align with this administration and the limited funding opportunities we are likely to see related to infrastructure, water, and energy. So for example, we've had a grant agreement in place with the US EPA since 2023 for the Coral Street Pump Station Electrical Relocation Project. In May of this year, EPA asked our team to update our existing scope of work to remove any reference to the terms greenhouse gases, sea level rise, climate change, and climate impact. So this provided us some good insight into how we may need to describe projects at the federal level in the coming years. So it doesn't mean we're going to be changing the scope of our projects, but the narrative around those projects. So another example relates to our renewable energy efforts, which you've heard me previously talk about a rebrand to domestic energy production. Next slide, please. So advocacy looks a little different at the federal and state levels, and our quarterly strategies are formed based on the relative activities at each level. So this is an overview of the quarterly activities at the federal level that inform our advocacy strategies. So to highlight just a few, Congress takes an August recess. So this quarter, we hosted staff from Congressman Panetta's team, both at his DC office, who was out visiting, and the Monterey office. And we took them up to the Pure Water Monterey injection wells, had a great visit with them. Fast forward to January, we will start the second session of the 119th Congress, and it also begins our lobbying efforts related to the fiscal year 2027 budget and any potential community project or congressionally directed funding, previously known as earmarks, that we may want to submit. Next slide, please. Okay, so what have we been up to recently? So some examples of the advocacy work that have occurred in the past few months. We submitted a letter of support for the WIPES Act. The WIPES Act would establish a federal labeling standard for so-called flushable wipes to now include do not flush language. This is similar to recently enacted regulations in California for proper labeling of wipes. And what you see on the screen in that first circle, that is the label that you should start seeing as you purchase wipes in California, whether it be disinfectant wipes, baby wipes. In California, we have a labeling standard and it looks just like that. And you should now see it. Manufacturers had an opportunity to work through their current supply, but once they did, they needed to start making sure that all packaging included that labeling. So this is taking California legislation and enacting it at a federal level so that all throughout the United States, wastewater treatment plants are seeing the benefit of that labeling. As previously mentioned, we had Congressman Panetta's staff out. We also had Senator Schiff's regional staff out for a tour of the plant earlier this year. And we also continue to get monthly reports and weekly water email summaries from our lobbying firm as they work to keep us current on changes in DC. So every time a new EO comes out in an executive order, they're pinging us in addition to kind of those routine outlets they've established to make sure that we're apprised of any and all changes happening at the federal level. To further support our advocacy efforts and our vision here at Monterey One Water, we also play an active role with our industry associations, including those listed. And then as the master plan kicks off and PFAS regulations are on the horizon, we may also look to join the National Association of Clean Water Agencies, who on the federal or the national scale has a greater focus on the wastewater side of things for us. So I'm now going to turn it over to Johanna to give you a look into the federal funding space before we pivot and look at advocacy through the lens of the state.
Next slide, please. In seeking grant funding, the agency ensures that the grant itself is consistent with existing agency's strategic planning efforts. We review both state and federal level grants to determine where the agency is the most competitive. Together with the legislative affairs teams, we keep track of any upcoming and new legislation, and we determine the staff capacity to seek, pursue, and manage the grant. At the federal level, our strategy we align projects with federal government priorities and any available programs. We ensure that the grant applications are consistent with the granting agency priorities and the national interest. And we keep close track of executive orders that are overhauling the federal grant process. An example of this, it's the most recently executive order for grants that was issued on August 7 by the name of Improving the Oversight of Federal Grant Making. This EO calls for the centralization of grant approval process, which means every grant award, potential grant award, gets reviewed by another department to make sure it aligns with these priorities and that they're consistent with the president's policy priorities. And we identified the regular funding, the sources to identify regular grants. We go to, next slide, please. We go to grants.gov, which is the online hub for federal grants, and we sign for the different databases at the federal level. Some of the agencies that we look for at the Bureau of Reclamation, the Department of Agriculture, Department of Energy, Department of Transportation, the Environmental EPA, and FEMA. Next slide, please.
All right, so now we're going to switch over to the state level. So we have a monitoring contract with lobbying firm Nimella Pappas and Associates. While the federal government sets a threshold or a minimum, ultimately states establish and enforce pretty significant amounts of regulatory compliance. So at the state level, we spend a lot of time tracking legislation. Currently, we're also working to thread the needle when it comes to the nexus between federal and state priorities. With kind of federal deregulation occurring, this is moving responsibility to the states. And we need to be strategic advocates for Monterey One Water as we balance what can at times be diverging state and federal priorities. This is especially important as we see fewer funding opportunities at the federal level and the state budget, which has seen highs and lows in recent years. So an example of this can be seen with a grant we are applying for and submitting this week. Funding originates from the federal government, but it's distributed by the state of California. Both governing bodies ultimately will have to sign off on the agreements with the selected projects. So we know the current federal administration does not prioritize renewable energy or climate resiliency, but the state does. So how do we convince the state to pick us without using terms that flag concern at a federal level? So it's really ultimately for us, it comes down to a careful game of wordsmithing and packaging to meet all priorities and agency needs, Monterey One Waters, the states, and the federal government. Next slide, please. All right, so looking at our state schedule for this year, Q1 is peak season for tense legislative negotiations, and we're watching identified bills closely as this is when the fate of many bills will be decided. Next quarter, and Alexis may laugh at this, but next quarter is the quiet period on the state calendar, because is there ever really a quiet period? As elected officials, I imagine you might feel that way, but it's the quiet period on the state calendar where legislators break for election season and time in the district, and we do plan to capitalize on that. We have a tour with Senator Laird scheduled that Chair Williamson will be joining. We'll be reaching out to our other representatives as well to see if they'd like to join us while they're in district or spending more time in district in Q2. Fast forward to 2026, and we are planning a lobbying day in Sacramento to brief staff who drive policy details and agendas on Monterey One Water, our mission, and our priorities in the coming years. Next slide when you get it. Some highlights and examples of recent state advocacy work include letters of support and testimony for board members at the State Water Resources Control Board. We've also supported legislation that would establish a PFAS mitigation program and fund, something that may be critical to Monterey One Water in the future as a passive receiver of PFAS. And we joined our industry in advocating for funding for water recycling through Prop 4, the voter-approved climate bond. So further strategy, especially at the state level, includes our industry engagement. So here we participate in several committees and working groups with our industry associations, using our expertise on a wider scale to advance our mission and vision. All right, now we'll go back to Johanna to look at funding through the state lens, and then we'll wrap up with some local strategies.
At the state level, we work with the engineering and other departments to align projects with the state priorities and the available grant programs. We prioritize projects that address multiple state goals, such as water quality, climate resilience, and benefits to disadvantaged communities. We also utilize the California Grants Portal to search for grants. This is sort of the central hub for all grants in California. And we identified some of the relevant funding sources are, next slide, please. California Office of Emergency Services, the California Energy Commission, this is where the CERI grant is from, Cal Recycle, the Department of Water Resources, and the State Water Resources Control Board. Next slide, please.
All right, so we're going to wrap up with local advocacy. Here, our focus has been on establishing processes to track member entity and stakeholder activities, identifying new engagement strategies, and continuing to share our mission and services with our peers and community. More on local advocacy in the future as we develop strategies to ensure we continue to be active, collaborative community partners. Final slide, please, Chai. All right, and so finally, with department change comes an opportunity to make adjustments. So as we look forward, we will be working across departments to identify key agency needs that will inform our advocacy strategies at all levels. Our goal is to increase recognition of the Monterey One Water brand and expertise to aid in the efficacy of our advocacy efforts. That's a mouthful.
10 times fast.
Yeah, you first, Tyler. We're also researching a data management system to aid in helping us track contacts, legislation, tasks, and touch points. And ultimately, we're looking to establish clear transparency and value throughout our legislative and advocacy program. And that is our update for tonight.
Beautiful. Thank you both for your presentation. We'll open it up to the board for questions. Please.
Thank you for the presentation. I think it's refreshing to see this type of engagement and to just get an update on what you all are doing, which I think is a lot, right, to say the least. And we know that the state budget and the federal budget are looking kind of iffy right now, but you guys are doing everything you can to make sure that you're positioning the organization in the best place possible. One of the things I really wanted to just highlight was, I think Johanna mentioned that we're trying to be consistent with the president's priorities. And can we emphasize or can we elaborate a little bit on what that would be, or areas of opportunity that we can find within the president's priorities?
So one of the items, it's when EPA reached out to update the scope of work that we have previously submitted back in 2023, they gave us specific words that we needed to update to make sure that it aligns with what they're looking for now. And that's when we're changing. We're not using sea level rise anymore, or climate change, doing little things like that, wordsmithing basically.
Gotcha.
Because those are keywords that will pop when they're reviewing grant applications.
Definitely.
It doesn't mean you can't have extreme wave events or domestic energy production.
No, definitely. And for any type of grant applications, are we still reaching out to our state elected officials for letters of support and relying on our legislators?
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. And I just want to say thank you for signing on to the Prop 4 a letter. I think it's really important and something that's really timely. So this is just my personal bit. I would love to see a little bit more of these presentations as the quarters hit, like as you mentioned, as you outlined, sort of to just track the progress of what you all have done and areas in which this board can possibly support you all as well.
Thank you. That was good. Any other questions? I have two. So you had spoke to, I think it was this week or in the coming week, that we were going to be submitting an application. If you could describe what that is a little bit more. I'm not sure if this would be the appropriate time.
This is for the CERI application, and we are submitting the renewable energy project. It's actually due this Friday. We are submitting for the They only have, it's a very small application, they only have 10 million available, possible two grants available of 5.1 each. So we are submitting for the full amount. We have to do some wordsmithing on that one, even though it's through the California Energy Commission. This is federal grants, and it has all of the federal grant requirements.
Okay. And how do we feel about the potential of securing some funding, at least from that?
The application is good.
can
I had no doubt there.
That's a great question. And ultimately, as we discussed this with Paul, we decided it was worth it to move forward. We applied for this in round 1, and we were the next entity to be funded. So we had a solid base. We were really repackaging and reworking to ensure that we were being competitive on a state level, but we were meeting federal priorities. So as we talk about it, honestly, we think we have a really solid application that may be selected. It'll be another story as we work with then potentially both on the state level, CEC, California Energy Commission, and then at a federal level, the Department of Energy, to try to execute an agreement. Of the 6 projects that received funding in round 1, only one, is that correct? One has executed an agreement so far. But there are very few opportunities out there. So when we have a pretty solid base and we have an excellent project to put forward, we are still trying to wisely and judiciously, with our limited resources, apply when it works. So that's the honest,
No, I
honest
appreciate it.
answer.
I
It's
appreciate
going to be a solid application. What happens after that? We will be waiting eagerly, just like all of you.
Okay.
So Tyler, maybe to be the grumpy old man, we never count a grant until, frankly, we get the checks in the door. Because you can be awarded a grant, but as Rachel said, you need to get an agreement, and then you still need to get the funding afterwards. So I think what I can say about this one from my knowledge is we did it last time. They did a debrief. They made it better. So is it possible? Absolutely. But until that check's in the door, I'm always going to be hesitant to say anything. We did the same thing years ago with the Bureau of Reclamation, which ultimately led to about $30 million coming here. We got denied the first time, and we went back to Denver. We did the debrief. We actually went back to DC, changed some language, and we were able to be successful. And I think it's that sort of iterative process where you're putting the hard work in to understand how we can be better for all of those entities that they're talking about, which takes a lot of work, but we're trying to get it done.
Please. On just piggybacking off the chair's question, what was missing the first time? I know you.
Yeah.
Great question.
Yeah, there was actually one very key piece. So this is where, again, we're trying to balance state and federal priorities. So at the state level, the state would like us to partner with a community-based organization to help ensure that we are educating on this project throughout the service area, and that we are developing a very clear metrics-driven community engagement plan along with a workforce development plan. When we applied the first time, we talked about the strategies we would utilize to build out the plan, and that we would identify a CBO to support us in authentic, organic, in-community marketing. But we didn't identify a CBO. They let us know that we really need to have a CBO identified going into the application. So this time, actually through some of the work we did on the limited time low income water assistance, so not the energy one, but the federally funded low income water assistance program that they had during COVID. We got connected with a CBO in the community who was administering that program and the energy version of it, which actually has more long-term funding. LIHEAP is probably what you've heard it as. Yeah. And so we have partnered now with that CBO. They have done a letter of commitment, and we are actually both really excited and really hopeful in getting this grant because they are an awesome nonprofit, and they have a workforce development program. So it's they have actually kind of every year it varies based on the funding they receive, but it is a workforce development program. So hands-on, either during the day or sometimes at night, again, depending on funding, program to develop careers and help give a path to those in the community who are interested in energy. Their focus right now has been on the residential side. So they do a lot of like solar repair. If we get funding, we'll help enhance that program by adding a commercial element to it and then be able to educate on the careers here at Monterey One Water. And all of the services and careers we have here as well. So it'd be a really great way to connect authentically in the community with an established program that already has who's trustworthy, because I think that's a huge piece of connecting with a CBO, but also has a really established program and reputation within the community. And at times, sorry, I have to look at my cheat sheet here because there are those words, we're not going to use, like low income, underserved, disadvantaged. Those are all things we don't write about, but they are well positioned to be able to help community members who may want to seek out jobs in the trade, and really great six-figure jobs, right? In utilities and, maintenance mechanics. So really great opportunities here.
Thank you.
Sorry, we're just really excited about that part, Alexis. So you just opened it up for me.
And then the last question is, and it related to the kind of more local piece of this. I know that this is something that we had talked about previously, where there was oftentimes grants available to local agencies. And so just wondering where the opportunities are moving forward with particularly member agencies and leveraging those grant opportunities, given the fact that we have the advocacy arm that exists within our organization.
Okay. So I actually think step one in that is kind of engaging with each of our member entities at times when we don't have something to say. And so that last slide on local affairs was a little bit minimal right now because we're developing out our strategy. And I think a key piece of that strategy is how do we communicate so that we start to become top of mind for each of your member entities. And while you may not have legislative advocacy arms or lobbyists, some of you, excuse me, just having your teams thinking about us. So if they see something come through, they are thinking about us. We are always thinking about all of you because that's our job, right? As you said, we do have an advocacy arm. We have somebody dedicated to looking for grants, and getting creative in that grant space is going to be critical in the coming years with, budgets being, a little unclear at this point at both the federal and state levels. And so any funding opportunity that comes, we need to be looking how we can leverage it together as a community. And sometimes that does mean packaging together multiple projects and submitting it together as a program or a bigger plan.
Okay. I think my last comment here on this is, if at all possible, if we can help push information to the member entities when we happen to hear those things come up, like, oh, this is a great program, but we can't apply for it, but your member agencies can. And I'm eager to try to find a way of having Monterey City staff loop back around with you all to really make sure that we're looking at all the opportunities that are available there to us. And just to give perspective, I mean, our city is going through our current fiscal year, $10 million fiscal deficit. So, any kind of opportunities that exist to help our side, we embrace that. So, okay. Thank you for it. We'll take it out to the public to see if there are any public comments. Anybody in the public wish to speak on this item? All right, I'm not seeing anybody, so we'll go ahead and bring it back to the committee. Or the board, any last comments? All right, thank you both again for the presentation, and I look forward to the discussion. I think the idea of having maybe some more frequent updates is a great idea, especially when we have the resident expert from our state legislature on our board. So, thank you.
Good, thank you all.
Great. With that, we'll go ahead and go to item number 11, staff reports.
Thank you, Tyler. Just a couple quick things. On August 6th, we had a tour with Castroville Community Services District. Ron and James Durbin came by, which was great. James has been the GM there for 7 months, 6 months?
It's December.
Since December? Okay, a little longer than that. So it was great to have them come by. On August 7th, we actually had a meeting with Chispa, which was good just in terms of more community outreach and just getting to know some of the partners that are in the community. The same day, I also met with Sean McGuire, who is a board member at the State Water Resources Control Board. Obviously, with everything that we have going on with the State Water Resources Control Board, as well as a regional board, I try to stay in contact with them as best as possible. Following day, I had an opportunity to talk with the executive officer of the regional board, Ryan Lodge. Hence the reason I knew why we were in the morning on October 9th for our permit. We can certainly talk about this a little more later. Tyler and Kent and myself, and Lawrence met with the leadership committee at Monterey County Water Resources Agency, which is their board chair, vice chair, and staff. I think Dave mentioned it a second ago, and I'll just mention it again. You also should have received an invitation to the ribbon cutting. They're all out to these guys? Okay. For October 2nd for Pure Water Expansion. And then lastly, just as a reminder, City of Salinas and Water Resources Agency and us have that short-term agreement that expires at the end of October to accept water from the city to help them out with their ponds. So it's something that we'll start talking about again to see what the needs are and how we maneuver in the future. It came up really fast, didn't it? Yeah. They told me it's like, oh yeah, it's 2 months out. I'm like,
We're aware of that.
we better get on that. So that's all I had. Tammy?
So there's a lot of exciting things going on at Monterey One Water, and I just wanted to thank the engineering department for lightning speed as far as getting new projects in to increase the reliability of our infrastructure. And I'd also like to thank my entire team, because while Matt is doing all these projects, we still have to keep water in the pipe and keep everything going. So the Energia project, which was to upgrade the digesters, is coming to a close pretty soon. The food waste project is going to be starting here shortly. We are changing the way we're managing the biosolids, which you guys are aware of, so that's different. The expansion project, we have numerous shutdowns that we have to stop producing water. So Jose and his team, David Bradley, trying to continue to make water and get water in the ground. I can't be more proud of the group, and what I try and do condition communication is change isn't going to stop. It's just going to get more and more with all the projects that engineering is sending down. But I think it's great. And so there's a lot of good things happening at the legislative and grant level, but on the boots on the ground, the team is doing an outstanding job. So I just wanted to thank them for that.
Do you have an update on two of the project finance is working? We're working on the investment policy, which will present to the board in September. The other exciting news is we will finalize the RFP for the rate study and cost allocation plan. The RFP will close on this Friday, and we'll select a vendor and a consultant. Hopefully, we'll present to the board in September as well.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, staff. With that, we'll bring it to board member comments and reports. Anybody on the board, please?
Yeah, I just want to say, I got a report from the CFO at Marina Coast that she feels like Lawrence has been working very well. The two of them working out some inter-agency issues and making progress on that. So I just want to say congratulations on that.
Yes, thank you. We make a lot of good progress. Really enjoy working with Marina Coast Water District.
Excellent. And then this is just a request to our executive committee, our chair and vice chair. I don't know when the last time we had something like this, but I wonder if you might take under consideration asking staff at some point in the future, no rush, to give us a comprehensive briefing on the various forms of insurance that we have at the agency, self-insurance, insurance bought from other folks for personnel, for buildings, for infrastructure, for whatever. I'm not sure we've ever really, the board has ever seen a comprehensive briefing. I think that might be informative and educational. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? All right, with that, we will take it to item 13, which is public comments on closed session items. We have two items. The first is 14A, which is public employee performance evaluation for the executive officer, general manager. And 14B is conference with legal counsel, significant exposure to litigation for one potential case. Anybody in the public wish to speak on either of those items? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and adjourn to closed session. Thank you, everybody.
Have a second.
You want to stay for the second?
It is 8:17 and the board is adjourned from closed session. There are no reportable actions. Chair Williamson.
All right, that will go ahead and adjourn. Thank you, everybody. Did that help? Oh, man. Well, I look forward to hearing